so much happening right now. It is really starting to get bad in Southwest Florida, and it's just the beginning, Scott.
Yeah, it really is the beginning of the more difficult times out there, and it will just get worse, and then really a surge coming in with the eye. We'll go and take a closer look here and a closer inspection of what's going on. Now, this is that spaghetti plot we were talking about earlier. These are different hurricane forecast models and their interpretation with slightly different parameters in each one of those, and then running that model with lots of very in-depth physics with some very brilliant meteorologists and physicists that put these computer forecast models together. And the National Hurricane Center then takes the human element and adds in the experience that they have to say where they believe the course is going. So here we are. This is Fort Myers right up here to the north and west. This is the spaghetti plot showing a cluster of these hurricane models. The closer they are together, that's a higher confidence in that track because there are more models saying this is where it's going. Now, we do have one model that was showing up further to the west here, and I can recognize this lettering here, that this one has been an outlier fairly often, meaning that it hasn't been running exactly close to the other one. So let's slowly, if we can, push this ahead forward here to see what our track shows. And here we are stopping it now, and you see right of the words Fort Myers disappearing now because we have that cluster coming inland now. We did have the track following pretty close to here last. This is where the Hurricane Center had the forecast track before. The latest update has drifted it inland a little bit, and the National Hurricane Center forecast track, let me see if I can get it right to the right spot. It appears to be right around here. I'm not sure if one of these is the Hurricane Center itself, but it looks like, well, let's push these up a little bit further, and we can see how much further the track goes past the Fort Myers area. There's the sun going down. Okay, so that's after sunset right there. So that's an update on our graphic so you can see how the time is changing. So now we'll bring the model up. We'll go back and forth. Here's Port Charlotte now, and this cluster showing further east now. Maybe our graphics can tell us if this is the Hurricane Center. Well, we'll look at the main track later. I'm not sure if the red line here is from the Hurricane Center itself, the NHC. Dan, you think that's the... I think the red one is. Okay, so the Hurricane Center oftentimes will put their track right in the middle of all the other models as a consensus, but then adding in what else they feel. So as you can see here, as we look at that cluster, it does expand a little bit more as we go towards North Florida. The reason for that, time, basically. And so the further away we go, if you have an error, and that just error increases with time as you go out, and that's the divergence of these lines as you see. So across Southwest Florida, what does that mean for impacts? Let's take a look here now, and we're going to show you our next graphic. Not sure. Okay, here we go. Here is the track itself. This is the National Hurricane Center track. Now, unfortunately, the icon's going to pop in, but there it is. So there's Fort Myers. It looks like they got rid of that one, which is great. We appreciate that. There's the track, and it shows. So here's Sanibel Island right here, and Pine Island, and basically right there. That's pretty much over Cape Coral, would you say?
Over Cape Coral.
Pretty much right over Cape Coral. Now, we're looking at the center here. Remember, this is a huge storm. We've been saying it over and over. The impacts are going to be great far and wide, but the center is important because it will tell us what wind direction we're going to get. So on the east side of the storm system here, we're getting southerly wind on the east side. So a southerly wind comes in. It's east over the top of the center of the storm. So that's the first thing that comes on in, and you draw that water. That's what we're getting now. All the water is drawn out of the Caloosahatchee River, the Peace River as well. And then as the storm goes by, we then switch that wind around. It wraps around and then comes in from the south into the east, or say the wind coming in from the south and west will blast that water back on in from what we call below normal levels to 10 feet above, 8 feet above, depending on the number on the storm surge map. So you can get a 10 to 15 foot rise in the water because the water starts out so low. That's in places near the rivers. Other places further to the south towards Naples will get that storm surge when that wind goes to southerly. So as you're in these locations, you know the orientation of which way you're facing. Remember, when that wind starts to blow off of the water, that's bringing the water in. So when you see the direction change, just keep that in mind. That's when you're going to be seeing the surge. And so depending depending on where you are, it's different for everybody depending where you are. You just need to know which way is north and south and which way the water is, the direct line to that water, and you'll know when that surge is expected to come on in. That's if you are, of course, in those zones that are in the surge. We hope that folks have heeded the warnings and gotten out. We know many folks are hunkering down. So there's the track right on over the Fort Myers area again. Let's bring it to the north now just to show you where we're heading after that. We'll go up and just continue the track on up. And here's the Tampa area. So here's downtown Tampa, and the storm, the projected track now is either right over Tampa or just to the east side of Tampa, which as the storm goes by will raft water into Tampa Bay as well. And then, of course, the storm continuing to weaken as it continues to move inland, and then it will push up to Georgia and then kind of float around in the southeast United States with a lot of water. And speaking of water, a lot of rain has been falling with this system. Let's see if we can take a look at the accumulated rainfall numbers. And they have really been increasing. We saw numbers as high as 11 inches to a foot of rain as the eye wall came across the Keys with 125-mile-an-hour wind gusts. It was pretty impressive. This is a future cast of what we are expecting for rainfall. And here you see this is just through, I can't see a time on the map. Oh, here we are right here. So this is just this morning here. So this is pretty much where we are, I guess. So this is how much rainfall we have had up till now. I'm not sure if we're in a future cast, as the computer was saying this, or this is exactly what we've had. I think the numbers have been a little bit lower, but here we'll push this ahead here and go all the way on through to Monday. Okay, there we are. I see it was on the wrong day. So these are the numbers that we're seeing now. Not as high as they were yesterday, originally projected. So these do look a little bit lower here, although you see a lot up near Daytona Beach with 10 inches of rain. But as the storm system moves through, at least a half a foot of rain on top of that storm surge coming in. So keep that in mind as we move through. That we were seeing numbers as high as 10 to 15 inches, and I think the reason being is that we've already seen a lot of rain fall here. So this is a computer forecast from, I believe, from this point on. Sometimes it's difficult to get the numbers, so we have to add in the rain that has already fallen. This is how much more is going to add in. A lot of rain has fallen across down to the south here near Marathon Key and points further to the south. All right, let's get right to the Doppler radar and show you the very latest of where Irma is now as it tracks to the north here. We're taking a look here, first of all, at okay, we've got a power outage map. And I'm glad we can get the graphics department to do this. A great job, by the way, guys. We really appreciate all the help. They've been working real hard on this. It's basically, when you look at the chart, look at the key down here and to the west, to the left here, moderate 20% chance of power outages, widespread, and then greater than 50% catastrophic. And you see that how much we had down in South Florida. That's where we've been talking about all the power outages. And so now you're seeing it here as we move further towards the north, getting up north of I-75. It's not quite as bad, but we're still talking widespread power outages everywhere is pretty much what we would have expected, and that's through Monday at 9 o'clock in the morning. So power outages is always a big deal. It's already been happening, and as the wind comes through, it just adds insult to injury because we have the wind, the rain, and the power outages, and when we have flooding, it's difficult to get around. So here's the very latest Doppler radar. There you see the eye of Irma right in here with the eye wall on the north side here, and it is tracking actually due north on the latest hurricane forecast, right, Danny? Due north here with an expected turn to slightly to the north, to the west of north, so slightly northwest. If you were to draw a line due north, you'd be bringing this inland south of the Naples area, or right at Naples here, but it is basically expected to turn just slightly west of north. Now, again, the track can shift. It shifted east this last one, and if it shifts east anymore, it could go inland at Naples and then just continue to drive in east of Fort Myers. That is not out of the question, which would keep the storm surge would be, the maps would change a little bit. And so this is something we'll have to keep a close eye on, because then we'll get a northerly wind and then a northwesterly wind pulling on in. But that's not the course forecasted right now. When you have the eye coming over you, get a wind direction in almost every direction. The wind just continues to shift all the way around the eye. So it is very likely, you see the eye here now, we're charting it out at 65 miles south of Naples is what is showing up here. That's not the center of the eye, but it is inside the eye wall here. And so this is the strongest wind with the hurricane right in here. This is what is now pushing up and will eventually be getting to Naples. So at that time frame, we're talking a little later this evening. Danny, did we get a timing on this, what our thoughts were? Maybe we can show a future cast and get the latest timing on what's called our RPM model, which is a high-resolution computer model. This is what's happening right now, or what has been happening. We take a look at a future cast, and we'll be able to kind of get an idea of the timing on some of this. Is first of all the wind speeds, not necessarily the rain. We'll look at the future cast of the clouds and rain coming coming up in just a little bit. But you see the wind gusts here in Key West and down in Naples. It's showing 106 here. Now, that's this later this afternoon. So we're talking this evening now, wind gusts of 106 miles per hour in Naples. That's what we saw on the Pine Key. And Big Pine Key, thank you. And that's the basic situation that will just be lifted to the north there because this storm system is staying in the same. So the intensity here, 8 o'clock this evening, is when, if it were to be landfall, either way, the center of Irma would be right over this region. You see Fort Myers at 106 mile per hour winds. I know it's hard to imagine that, but that's exactly what we're looking at. And then by Monday at 2 o'clock in the morning, you see it overnight. It starts to tend to finally begin to die down. This is the Futurecast I wanted to show you with the radar. We'll stop it here if we can, maybe back it up just a little bit to bring it back down over Fort Myers here. I think we'll be able to do that depending on what mode they're in the computer. I appreciate that. This shows it inland a little bit more here, showing the eye, but you can see how much moisture and the heavy rain wrapping around this system here, coming all the way in from the east. We've had wind gusts along the east coast south of Miami because it's coming off the ocean upwards to hurricane force from numerous reports of 70, 72 mile per hour winds.
Scott, I'll tell you, the rain band moving through South Collier County right now is reporting gusts of 73 miles per hour in Big Cypress National Preserve. And near Chokoloskee, we're looking at a 66 mile per hour wind gust. So we are nearing that hurricane force wind gust.
So we are getting
in
really
the upper
close.
60s into the low 70s.
That's right. And that's in not just necessarily more remote areas. We're starting getting this closer to more populated areas as well.
In fact, RSW's latest wind gust was 59 miles per hour. So in Lee County, even, we're getting into the strong tropical storm force.
And I will say the airport has probably the best weather station. These National Weather Service weather stations at the airports are some of the best with the most accurate readings. It's a real good representative number of what's going on. We're now zoomed in here to show you on the Futurecast, and this is the eye wall coming across the Naples area. I'm not sure we have a time. Yes, we do. Okay, there's the time right up there. So there's the afternoon, and that is so. This would show basically the eye here. This would be the eye wall to the north, and this is this afternoon around 4 o'clock here with that pushing through our region and then tracking to the north. That is very heavy rain. That is very heavy wind. There will be storm surge coming in with the eye wall in some locations, and then as the storm passes here, then the wind will shift around to the west, and we can get that surge up into the Caloosahatchee River as well. So the situation is growing close. It is basically here. We're getting your hurricane force winds across the southern part of the state right now, and that will continue to work its way to the north, conditions worsening and peaking in the Fort Myers area right around 8 o'clock this evening. That's the center of the storm. So that's basically halfway through because you still have the backside of the storm, which can be, when you're on the west coast like this, can be have even stronger wind because now it's coming all across the water and it's less of those gusts. It's more of that steady wind, and that's what can bring the storm surge in to west and pushing up into the northeast, west, southwest, up to the northeast as it moves on in. So there's the Futurecast there right now. If we can, we'll take a look at the wider view, maybe even have a satellite picture to show the course of what's been happening over the past 12 hours or so. Eyes tend to wobble back and forth, and so the line is drawn straight, but the hurricane tends to wobble as it moves up. And if it wobbles in one direction just a little bit more, we're seeing the latest Doppler radar there.
And Scott, if you want to point out the rain band moving through Naples right now, a wind gust of 64 miles per hour with that rain band. That's the Naples Municipal Airport, 64.
Yeah, and you saw that deeper yellow just a little while ago on the Doppler radar. So 64 miles per hour with that rain band there. So
in Naples.
In Naples. We're talking in Naples now, exactly. And so here we are with the core of the hurricane. We're talking the real hurricane force winds about in this region here on the last frame. And so as we start to lift this to the north, now we're going to start to increase this. And so what we're seeing in Naples, we'll start to see maybe in Fort Myers in the next 25 minutes or so, 30 minutes or so, as this begins to continue to track to the north. We still have the eye coming in here. So conditions will continue to worsen. And maybe you can switch back to the radar. We'll show you that actual band of the heavy rain coming in. It's no longer rain and then not rain and showers and then we dry on out. We're talking consistent, steady rains now with heavier rain embedded. So that's why we've got all greens and yellow showing up. Keep in mind, see down here we have not much showing up near Key West. The Key West Doppler radar stopped operating when the hurricane came through with wind gusts over 124 miles an hour just to the east. And so the Key West Doppler radar is not reporting right now. Either the radar has been taken down or the communication to the radar has been taken down. I do know that in Hurricane Andrew, when the hurricane came in through Homestead, the Doppler radar ripped off of its tower and actually landed in the pool of a Marriott not far away. And so that was a pretty bad situation. Not sure if that's the case in Key West, but we're not seeing a lot of good radar information here. So it looks like there's less down to the south. That is not the case. We still have this storm system tracking to the north. And we kind of look at that little wobble here, too.
I would guess it's communication. The last update was 30 minutes ago.
So they did have.
And so I would guess the radar is still up. It's the communication that has been
so they've had
spotty,
disrupted communication with the Key West radar. So now we're picking up with the Miami radar right now. And then, of course, the Tampa radar to the north helps us to fill in. But a lot of the yellow showing up in this orange band. That's what we were just talking about right in here. This orange band is where we're getting those strong gusts. And so this band itself is giving us wind gusts, you said, a 64, just 10 miles per hour below hurricane force, that in the Naples area. So if you see this band on the radar, and if you're living anywhere in this, see now coming across Highway 75 right there at Alligator Alley, it's now beginning to push north. A lot of activity has been going on south of Alligator Alley. Now we're really going to start to push this to the north, and things will start to deteriorate much more quickly now for the Naples area, upwards to the Fort Myers area, and Captiva and Sanibel Island as well. It is in these waves. So more of these bands will redevelop as they continue to come in from the south. And this is the big one right here on the north side of the eye wall. When that one moves on in, that's where we'll get our strongest wind gusts moving back into the region. So that's pretty much the latest situation right now. As far as the wind goes, expect the worst tonight. Anytime between 5 and 8 p.m. for the Fort Myers area, we'll start to see that deteriorating with that maximum likely before 8 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock this evening, because, again, most of that activity, the strongest wind, is going to be just ahead of that. You can see the distance here. You've got Naples, 35 miles wide there. And let's take a look at this here. This is another interesting view that we haven't seen just yet here. And, Danny, did you have something to add in?
There's a quick update from the National Hurricane Center. A 109-mile-per-hour wind gust has been reported at Pines Middle School in Pembroke Pines. So that's on the east coast there, with those stronger bands moving through 109-mile-per-hour wind gusts, which is incredible. Movement or location now is about 65 miles south-southeast of Naples, so certainly getting closer to Naples. Maximum sustained wind still 130, still moving at north at 9 miles per hour as of the update was 6 minutes ago.
Yeah, we're going to keep getting more and more updates now. I think they'll be doing more interim updates as we get closer here. And again, this is that spaghetti plot. This shows the models all with a consensus of where they're expecting the storm to go. And maybe just inland here, going right over downtown Fort Myers is the possibility. And that would change the situation as far as our storm surge. We're going to keep you updated on that, and it's going to be minute-by-minute changes that will be coming on in as we go through the afternoon. We'll be right with you. Don't forget to watch us on the Fox 49 Now app. If you've got that, you can stream that. I understand we're on DirecTV. There's all kinds of locations that you can check it out. If you've got relatives that are concerned about your safety, you can let them know that they can stream on the app. And I think we're streaming as well on Facebook also. So we'll keep you updated throughout the afternoon and the rest of the evening. We're hitting that critical time frame right now where our populated areas are about to get hit hard with a lot of water. That's a lot of wind and rain and storm surge, which will eventually move on in as well. So as we get reports, we'll keep you updated. And, of course, you can go to our Facebook page and update us on what you're seeing as well. And we can get those reports out and start sharing information back and forth. But, of course, we'll be the center here for everybody.
Yeah, good point. And only if it's safe to do so. And that's
right. Where you're hunkered down, what you're feeling. Don't go out into the storm.
What you're feeling.
Absolutely.
Okay.